Hey kids, it's Mr. Fly here, hope you're well. Happy New Year, 2023 has flown by. Where has that gone? I do not know. Anyway, onwards and upwards, it's time for another bike news, the occasional feature on the channel where we check out what's been going on in the past month in the world of motorcycles here in the UK. So if you're interested in that, grab yourself a brew, stick around, stay tuned. Let's see what's been happening in the world of bikes. All right then, to the first paper. And the first story here is Hooligans Rejoice. This is the brand new KTM Super Juke R, a bike that I've always been a fan of, but I have to say, I'm not so sure now. KTM have done that thing, haven't they? I'm often critical of KTMs, maybe unfairly, on the looks of the bikes. And for me, looks of bikes are very, very important because they're the first thing that grabs you, of course, aren't they? And I have to say, the old Super Juke R, I loved the front light on it, but now they've done this thing where they've sort of cut out the middle bit of it and just made it a sort of an outside bit. It looks kind of unfinished to me. I suspect this is the way that all the lights on KTMs are going to go. So I'm a bit gutted about that because the Super Juke R was one of, as I say, few KTMs that I really like the look of. So for them to have changed it in that way, for me, is a bit of a shame. Now, it might be that I'm doing them a massive disservice. I've been wrong about bikes before when I've said I didn't like them, and then I've seen them in the flesh, and they've been fine. Maybe this is the case. I really hope so, because I suspect, as I say, they're going to do this across the range. This is their new sort of, the new face of KTM, which is a bit of a shame. Anyway, it says here that KTM are marking 30 years of their naked Duke range by introducing the brand new 187.4 brake horsepower 1390 Super Juke R range, powered by the monstrous 1350cc motor. Available from January in standard and Evo guise. It will take over from the 1301cc 1290 Super Juke. So yeah, so it's coming soon. From the side, it still looks a brute, doesn't it? And it'll be an amazing bike to ride. Maybe I'll try and have a go this year. I haven't ridden a Super Juke for a while, and I must admit, as I say, it is one of the KTMs I've loved, and maybe I should give it another chance. But what do you make of that headlight, and what do you think of KTM maybe making that their new face? For me, I just hope it's going to grow on me, I really do, because looking at it, it just looks unfinished to me, or broken. Anyway, just it's a personal thing. Obviously, it's personal taste and all that, but it doesn't appeal to me right off the bat, as they say across the pond. Right, next up, R12 Retros ready up. So this thing, I think, looks great. This is the new BMW R12 which it looks like is taking over from the old R9T, which was a bike that I loved. I do love a retro bike, me, as you've probably noticed if you've watched the channel much in the past. And the R9T was one that I've always loved. And it looks like the new R12 is just a bit of a step up. They've come out with a couple of models here. And let's read what it says, and then we'll have a talk about them. So it says here, 10 years on from the introduction of the first R9T Retro in 2013. Gosh, it's been 10 years already, incredible. BMW have pulled the covers off two new R12 models consisting of a 14,420 R12 Roadster and an 11,990 R12 Cruiser. So the Cruiser, significantly cheaper than the standard bike. There's a new frame, advanced electronics, quality chassis components. Both are powered by the same 1170cc motor, complete with a new airbox under the seat, revised cylinder head covers, and twin exhaust systems, which look absolutely great, the exhausts. The Roadster 9T producing an additional 13.4 brake horsepower, putting it squarely in the realms of Triumph's Speed Twin 1200 and Kawasaki's 4-cylinder Z900 RS. Two retros that I absolutely love, because I own both a Speed Twin and a Kawasaki Z900 RS. And it has to be said, if I had the extra money and space in the garage, I'd probably have an R9T as well, because I do think they look lovely. The reason why I haven't had one before is because I've already got a boxer engine bike in the shape of my R1200 GS. I just didn't fancy another boxer. I don't like the sticky out cylinders look of them. But anyway, it's kind of, I do like the look of the bike. I mean, it's growing on me. I'm not saying I'm never going to have one. It's certainly in the mix for sure. It says here, both bikes can be equipped with a quick shifter, which I'm not sure whether you need one or not on this type of bike, and certainly on a boxer engine, the quick shifters are usually pretty clunky, so I'm not sure if that's a good thing or not. Hill start assist can also be added, quite nice, as can LED cornering lights, not needed, and a 3.5-inch TFT to replace the standard analog clocks. Now that absolutely isn't needed. One thing a retro bike doesn't need, in my opinion, is a TFT clock. That's where Triumph go wrong with some of their retro bikes, things like the what's the big one, the you know, the monster one, you know the one I mean. It'll come to me in a minute. I mean, that's got the TFT, and it just doesn't look good. It'd be much better with the Rocket. That's it, the Rocket 3. It would be better if it had standard clocks. So yeah, I can't see many people speccing up TFTs for these, and if they do, What are they playing at? Anyway, there we go. So that's the new BMW. Look forward to giving it a try when it's available. All right, next up. Oh, one thing before we move on from there, I was just wondering what you thought of the Roadster from a looks point of view. Sorry, not the Roadster, the Cruiser. Because to me, the Cruiser doesn't look anything special. I don't really like the looks of that. So yeah, what do you think to the Cruiser? Let me know in the comments below. The Roadster I think looks great. Cruiser, bit of a thumbs down for me. All right, next up. Here we go. Himalayan. The prices have been announced of the new Royal Enfield Himalayan. It's going to come in at $5,750. The most expensive model will be $6,300 apparently, making it a direct rival to Triumph's Scrambler 400X, which starts at $5,595. So good price, no doubt about it. But and it's also a much better looking bike, particularly in the black and gold that's shown in this little picture here. Good price. I think it's going to sell well because it's a rugged bike that's got a great following, and this definitely looks better than the old bike, which looked pretty horrible in my eyes at least, and also was really down on power, whereas this one's got a bit more. I do think though, with the advent of those new Triumphs, this one's going to struggle. I don't know if you saw my video last week before of the new Triumph 400cc single cylinder bikes. Those things look absolutely beautiful. The quality of the build on them was great, and I think Royal Enfield in particular is going to take a bit of a hammering this year at the hands of Triumph, thanks to those new 400cc bikes. So we'll see, but I'm sure the Himalayan will do well because it's definitely improved on the old model. Again, another one quite like to have a ride of. Right, next up, talking of Triumph, Brit MX Shake Up. Full details on Triumph's TF250X ahead of its 2024 debut. Do you remember, this is the off-road bike that Triumph have been teasing us for absolutely ages now. It's finally out, under the wraps, and we can see all the details here. It says Triumph have finally spilled the beans on their 2024 TF250X MX racer, revealing further images and a full tech spec. It's powering the TF is a 249.5cc 4-stroke single and a 5-speed manual gearbox. It's got forged aluminium piston and titanium valves, diamond-like carbon low-friction coatings and magnesium covers to help keep the weight down. With it being a competition machine, Triumph aren't sharing the power and torque figures. I have to say it looks lovely and looks great in this colour scheme as well. I'm sure it's going to be a great off-roader. The only thing for me that's a little bit of a shame is it's a shame they don't make a sort of a road legal version, a bit like the Honda CRF, which you could argue isn't a proper off-road bike, or it's a very light one, if you like, a very easy and simple one. Wouldn't it be great if Triumph came out with a version of this with lights and mirrors that you could ride on the road? Now, what it doesn't say here is what these service intervals are, and because this is a proper competition spec bike, I imagine you measure these in hours rather than in miles. So it might just be that it's not feasible to make this into a road going bike, but wouldn't it be lovely if they made a bike styled like this that you could ride on the road and do a bit of light green laning on, to take on the likes of the Honda CRF, which in this country, in the UK, pretty much has that market sewn up. There are no other really road legal off-road bikes. So yeah, but looks good. I'm sure if you're into off-roading, sadly with my shoulder situation, my off-roading days are well behind me, but this certainly looks like a lovely bike. I'm sure it'll do well, and I hope it does for Triumph to get back into racing again. Okay, next up, what have we got? Lord of the Twins, just how special is Paton's £41,995 masterpiece, and can it beat Aprilia's sub-10k sporty stunner? This is very interesting. So the Paton S1R 60th anniversary limited edition. It's a 650cc parallel twin, putting out 74 brake horsepower and 162 kilograms against the Aprilia RS 660. And I have to say, just on looks alone, I prefer the looks of the Aprilia. These super expensive bikes, I do wonder sometimes how these companies actually sell them. They'll presumably don't have to sell too many to make it worthwhile at 42 grand a pop. You'd think it'll be absolutely brilliant. Let's have a look at the verdict of it up against the Aprilia. Power isn't everything, says Carl Stevens. The S1R 60th anniversary is so special in its own right, a beautiful thing to look at, that it's an equally mighty beast to ride. I actually don't think it's that beautiful to look at. Actually, it doesn't really appeal to me that much. It's a bit too upright and rounded, that front. Not keen. It truly feels like you're immersed in a TT game rather than chewing up rubber in real life. Yet it's eye-wateringly expensive, rough around the edges, and doesn't even pretend to be comfortable or practical. But that's exactly where Aprilia's RS 660 sits. So on that basis, I know which one I'd rather have, even though it's a quarter of the price. Not only is the RS 660 less to buy outright than the deposit for the Paton on finance, but it's faster in a straight line, more comfortable, and a lot more practical too, and I think it looks better as well. So for me, thumbs down on the Paton. They give the Paton 3 out of 5 and the Aprilia 4 out of 5 when you consider the Paton's 42 grand and the Aprilia's under 10. That's quite a thing, isn't it? Where do you stand on this sort of these boutique bikes? That one doesn't do much for me. Even the switchgear looks a bit trumpery as well, which is a bit sad. It says it's borrowed from a Kawasaki ER6. You would hope it would be a little bit more higher quality than that, wouldn't you, on something costing that sort of money? At least something machined or something. Anyway, there we go. Interested in your comments below on the pattern. Whether you think maybe I'm missing the point on it. What is it about those bikes? I don't know. It doesn't work for me. Right, next up, a Suzuki. Haven't spoke about Suzuki for a while on bike news. Here we go. So this is the new GSXS1000 GX. Suzuki banging out a few new bikes in the last year. They've been dormant for a while, but they've certainly been making up for it of late. So this is now, do you remember I rode the, what was it called? The GSXS1000 GT, probably about 8 months or so ago. I'll put a link in the corner if I can find that video. That bike had quite a lot of fanfare when it came out. I have to say I found it a bit, it was a nice bike to ride. 4-cylinder smoothness, great engine. Nothing about it really lit my fire. And in particular, I didn't, again, it's a personal thing, but I didn't like the looks of it. The front beak was too long for me. Whereas they seem to have now taken hold of that bike and sort of lifted it up and stretched it tallwards, and it has much improved the looks of the bike as far as I'm concerned. Otherwise, it's much the same bike. This is now, as I say, called the GSXS1000 GX, and I think it looks good. I'm looking forward to having a go on this one. Looks much nicer than the GT, I think, but otherwise it's pretty much the same bike. So I don't think it's going to be very exciting to ride, but certainly super practical at a good price. Comes in at $14,499 for what is essentially sort of a cross between a tourer and an adventure bike. I think this bike potentially could take sales away from the new, or people that would have bought a new GS but can't get on with the looks or the price of that bike, because the looks can be a little bit challenging from the front particularly, whereas this one looks quite handsome to my eyes, and of course this much better value at 14.5 grand versus 23 for a spec'd up GS. Anyway, let's see what the conclusion is here from Nevesy, my favourite road tester at MCM. He says Suzuki's new GSX S1000 GX, bit of a tongue twister, offers impressive day-long comfort, speed and tech, but falls short on being the complete package. Its new electronic suspension gives a plush ride and sharpens beautifully at speed, but better tyres and stronger brakes would elevate the handling and riding experience. It's undeniably quick, but the engine lacks low-down spice, a taller top gear for cruising, and more balanced riding modes. It's well finished and equipped, while it lacks some of its rivals' goodies, is what Nevesy says, so he's not exactly blown away by it. So yeah, we'll have a go of it, see what we think. I suspect it rides very similar to the GSX S1000 GT, so we'll see what I make of that later on the year. Hopefully when the sun shines I'm not going to have a go at that. Alright, that's it for the first paper. Next up, Mini Thruxton ready to roll. Now this one is absolutely intriguing. Do you remember, I can't exactly remember what Triumph called it, but they made a version of the Thruxton, I can't remember what it was called. I did borrow it for a couple of weeks. No, it's called the Speed, I can't remember what it's called, but it was the, what was it, Speed Triple RS, was that it? Something like that. Anyway, it had this very fairing on it, and it was the big engine bike. It looked amazing. It got a lot of hype at the time. I borrowed one, and it was absolutely backbreaking to ride, so it was a thumbs down from me. It looks like Triumph have come out with the same looking bike, but based on that new 400cc single, obviously for the sort of Indian and Asian markets. But again, I think this could potentially sell well here on looks alone, and it looks like it's not got such a crippling riding position looking at the picture here. Let's see what it says anyway. These spy shots recently snapped in southern Europe appear to show a new Triumph Thruxton 400 in the works. The mystery model is heavily based on the Speed 400 Naked. This means you can likely expect the same 398cc liquid-cooled motor with fin cylinder heads stuffed into a tubular steel chassis. Also appearing to be shared with the Speed model is the subframe seating arrangement and non-adjustable 43mm big piston upside-down front forks. Behind the fairing looks to be a set of clip-on bars to give the bike more of a focused stance, but given the placement of the foot pegs, it's unlikely to be too extreme of a riding position. Well, that's good news. Homologation ready number plate, hanger, reflectors and lack of data logging equipment on board suggests that the machine is very near market ready completion. So we shall see. I'm guessing that Triumph will probably launch this in the Asian markets first. We might see this 6 months later, a bit like they did with those singles. But I think it looks great. What do you make of this one? Again, it may not have much go if it's a 400, but it certainly looks the biz with that lovely fairing. And if it's not a backbreaker, could well be something worth gracing the garage. If they do it in some nice colour schemes, it could look really, really nice. So yeah, I'm really pleased to see Triumph going down these smaller capacity routes. I'd like to see it make a 125cc bike. Imagine that, getting new riders into motorcycling. That would be great. All right, next story. Getting amped up, new MTO9 gets an intake amplifier to enhance the riding soundtrack. Now, I love the sound of this. This sounds great. We all love a fruity exhaust note, don't we? But of course, with Euro 5 and Euro 6 and all that stuff, the noise of bikes has to be toned down. Certainly, the exhaust noise does. There's no reason why you can't tune the air intake, though. And the MTO9 looks great, doesn't it? I think they've really improved the looks of this bike, bar the looks of that exhaust sitting underneath, which looks a bit horrible. I think the front end is much nicer now than the previous MTO9. Anyway, let's read what it says here. Intake noise is often more appealing than exhaust sound. I agree. And Yamaha have now made a move to boost the amount of it that reaches the rider by using a patent applied for intake amplifier that focuses that sound directly at you without increasing outright noise levels. Cunning move. The new MTO9 sound is further amplified by a revised airbox featuring two newly designed air intake ducts which accentuate the high frequency sounds while maintaining a linear throttle response. Got a bit of a tongue-tied today. This sound is then emphasised, especially at higher speed and revs, by the introduction of a new acoustic amplifier grille on top of the bike, delivering the CP3's vibrant note directly to the rider. I love the looks of this. It's got a little picture here, and it's actually got either side of the fuel cap what look like a couple of speakers. What a brilliant thing. So, I know it's a bit childish, isn't it? But I do love an intake sound. And if this means you can get some of that fun out of the bike without making it overall more noisy to people, you know, innocent bystanders, then that's good to me. So well done, Yamaha, on that. Let's see more of that. Right, letters page. This letter tickled me. It's from Toby Varney from Somerset. He says, thank goodness for the Fantic Imola 125 comes equipped without an aero package. But what about launch control and a ride height device? One can't be too careful with almost 15 brake horsepower on tap. Scandalously, I note my lawnmower makes similar power and comes with none of these things. So Toby making a bit of a joke there at things like wings, aero packages on bikes that are low on power and used on the road. Just like that appealed to me. So thank you, Toby, for writing that letter into MCN. Gave me a smile. Right, next up, Kings of the Road. Okay, so this is an important comparison as far as I'm concerned. Adventure bikes along with retro bikes are my sort of favourite categories, really. I think they just make a lot of sense this day and age. So they've pitted the Ducati Multistrada V4S against the new BMW R1300 GS and the Triumph Tiger 1200 GT. I've been lucky enough to ride all these bikes. I've got one of these R1300 GSs at the moment on very long-term loan from BMW. I've got one for a year. This very bike, in fact, by the looks of it, or it's the same colour anyway. And it's a lovely thing. I have now actually ridden it for the first time as well, and there'll be a video coming up on that soon. Talk about that in Parish notices shortly. The Multistrada is a lovely looking bike. To me, it appeals to me, and it goes. It's sort of the adventure bike for sports bike fans. I always found it a little bit top heavy though. The GS with its boxer engine, in its current incarnation, I do find the look somewhat challenging, but the weight of it is held nice and low thanks to the low centre of gravity, thanks to the boxer engine. And the Triumph Tiger 1200 GT also looks great, I think. A little bit top heavy for my liking, but very nice bike indeed. I think it looks great. Possibly out of the three, I might think the Triumph Tiger looks best, closely followed by the Multistrada. I might change my mind depending on which way the wind's blowing. And then the GS last, certainly from that front angle. I despair as to what BMW have done to the GS, but again, personal taste thing. You may love the looks of the new bike. All right, let's see what the verdict was then. Here we go. They're all so capable. For fans of the GS family, the new 1300 carries the mantle in a recognisable and familiar way, albeit slimmed down. It's more agile and manageable at slow speeds than before, while being more dynamic and excitable. But it lacks sheer presence and zing, two things the Ducati offers up in abundance. The Triumph doesn't excel in the same way dynamically as the Ducati does, nor is it as composed as the BMW, but there is no denying it's a very capable bit of kit. So it's interesting that. So it gives the Triumph Tiger 5 out of 5, the Ducati 4 out of 5, and the BMW 5 out of 5. So the Ducati, it puts last out of that lot. Very, very interesting. So anyway, as I say, wait around for my first ride video. Won't be waiting for very long because it is in the can and it's coming soon. I'll tell you what I think of the new R1300 GS, which is a video that's been a very long time coming for a number of reasons, mostly because I haven't been able to ride because I've recently had a shoulder operation of more, which in the parish notices after we've gone through the papers. Right, 3 stories here. Bentley Italiano. Now this, what do you make of this? I think this is daft. This is Ducati collaborating with Bentley to make a Bentley Ducati Diavel V4. It's 58 grand, unbelievable amount of money. no denying, it looks absolutely corking. It's a beautiful bike. Let me read you some of the details here. Ducati have teamed up with the luxury car firm Bentley to produce an exclusive version of the Diavel V4 muscle cruiser, limited to just 500 units. It's called the Ducati Diavel 4 Bentley. What a rubbish name. It's 58 grand and it's based on the standard Diavel, which costs 23,595. So it's more than twice the money of a standard Diavel, which, let's face it, isn't a cheap bike, and let's face it, isn't a nasty bike. Another 50 Ducati Diavel for Bentley Mulliner models will be reserved for existing Bentley customers, and they're at 71 grand. Well, certainly, Ducati are certainly making some money on these things, aren't they? It's just, I mean, don't get me wrong, it's a beautiful looking bike. I love the way they've done it with the green. It looks lovely, the green with the red accents. It looks absolutely top notch. But number one, is it worth twice what the original bike is? And having Bentley blazoned all over something that isn't a Bentley just is wrong to me. It's sort of childish. It's a bit like, do you remember when Triumph made those 007 special editions? What a load of tot. I wonder how they sold. They don't have to sell many of these. These are obviously very specialist bikes for people that are into Bentleys. But for me, having branding on a bike that's absolutely nothing to do with the bike, it just doesn't work for me. God, I'm a bit whingy today. What do you think of that? Love to hear your comments in the comments below. Right, next up, 2 ways to tackle trails. Can Suron's silent trail bike outfox Honda's big selling CRF? So the CRF 300L as it is now, I think I said 250 earlier, I used to have the 250, of course it's the 300 now. Lovely bike, great fun, kind of miss mine, unfortunately, because of the shoulder situation, off-roading no longer for me. 5,799 is the CRF, and then there's this electric off-road bike for just under £1 under 6 grand from, it's called the Surron Ultra BT. Now I have to say, as much as I don't like electric bikes generally, they do make a lot of sense off-road, don't they? One of the things I found when I was green laning on my old CRF is 4 times out of 5 I would get complaints about, not noise, but just the fact that I was riding on green lanes, even though they were legal for me to do so. A noisy bike on green lanes is never going to be popular, is it? An electric silent bike, I think, absolute winner of an idea. And this one looks lovely and lightweight. In fact, it's 88 kilograms, whereas the CRF is 142 kilograms. So it's going to be dead easy to ride on the trails. You don't need to ride trails bikes for long distances, so the short range doesn't matter. I think that would be an absolute cracker off-road. How good would that be? Let's see what the verdict is from the guys at MCN. This is from John Urry. He says the CRF can feel a bit top heavy and hard work. True. The light Suron is easy to muscle, making it great for new riders, but after a few hours of green lane action, the battery gets low and your day is effectively over. The early bath is a huge downer because the Suron is so much fun, and that's why the CRF remains the best dual-purpose adventurer. You can ride it at any distance you like and then ride it home again with no worry or pre-planning. Yeah, get that. So in fact, the range is an issue. It says here likes the Suron's lightweight off-road agility, instant torque, and it's got a reverse gear apparently for when you get stuck. That's novel, isn't it? Great idea. Dislikes the CRF is heavy and a handful in mud. That's very true. Horrible whining sound from the Surron motor and its lack of range. What a shame. What a shame. But it does look the biz, and as I say, I think it makes a lot of sense, you know, off-road. But where the CRF scores is you can ride it to wherever your off-road destination is. If your off-road destination is 30 miles away on the Surron, it looks like you're stuffed. All right, last story in this paper then. Taking it to extremes, reborn Kawasaki ZX6R may have a little more mid-range, but it remains as focused as ever. Really looking forward to having a go on this as well. I love the idea of 4-cylinder, smallish capacity sports bikes. The big bikes that you can get now are just way too much for the road and way too much for a rider like me who is mediocre at best, and they just encourage you to ride like a hooligan because the rider aids are so good now, the electronics on these bikes, they give you all the help possible, so they just encourage you to ride fast, and that's just not needed on the road, is it? Whereas a bike like this could make a lot of sense. Let's see what Carl Stevens says about it. The ZX6R may be making a return, but in reality it hasn't really moved on. It's built to go fast on a track and everything else plays second fiddle. Oh, so not really a road bike. On the road it's hard, uncomfortable and a bit strangled by emissions laws. Ooh, okay, so not exactly a glowing review there for it as a road bike, that's a shame. We'll wait for the, is it the ZX4R, the 400cc version, might make more sense on the road. Want to ride them both really if I can. I do love a sports bike, I don't love their cramped riding position, so maybe the ZX6R isn't for me. And I don't like, as I say, the performance way too much for the road, but yeah, if you're a track fan, then maybe this is the one to go for. It is, however, £10,599, so quite expensive for a mid-weight sports bike, which do seem to be making somewhat of a comeback, don't they, last couple of years, which I applaud. All right, next up, final paper, Norton Go Global. Company CEO quizzed on brand's next move following model release delays. Norton CEO Dr. Robert Henschel has confirmed to MCN that new combustion engine models are on the way. Well, this is good news, better than going down the electric route. When asked what the new product line might look like, the CEO confirmed it would be a different category of machine from those we've seen already. Well, this is great news because in the past, Norton have always said they're a boutique brand, they're going to make upmarket, expensive bikes. And I have to say, from my experience of riding, which is only one, the Norton, I'll stick a link in the corner to my recent Norton video, I found it disappointing. Although it looked quite nice and I love the idea of a Norton, it was expensive and it rode horribly, frankly. So let's hope they come up with something a bit better. Anyway, what he said here was Norton want to appeal to a worldwide audience, and that means they'll be working on a new range of internal combustion engines for their developing model lineup. He then confirmed Norton would aim at lower capacity models first, with bikes produced meeting the company's luxury brand strategy. So what do you read into this? First off, I thought, this is great. This means they're going to make bikes that are realistic, that we can all aspire to. Do you remember the Atlas models that, we won't talk about old Norton, but that were going out that seemed like they were going to be brilliant and would make the brand mass market. And I thought when I read this, that's what they were going to do. But then you read this thing that says, the bikes produced meet the company's luxury brand strategy. That makes me think what they're going to do is make bikes that are like, well, I don't know, 675cc, say, but they're going to slap a big old price tag on them and they'll remain a boutique brand. I don't know. If that's right, then I can't help thinking that's a mistake. There's so much goodwill for Norton. It's such a great brand. I think it could do so well if only it would hit the mass market. I think coming up with lower capacity bikes, which is great news, but then making them expensive to maintain their sort of luxury angle. If they're not actually good, I have my doubts about where Norton's going. I hope it goes well. I wish them great luck, but let's hope this is the right strategy for the future. Time will tell. Interested in your views on that one? Comments below. Right, laser vision of the future. Now, I often go on about technology and saying that, you know, I prefer simpler bikes over technology-laden ones. And in the main, that is true. But it depends on the technology. There are some bits of technology I love. ABS, traction control, I cannot argue with. And I also love blind spot mirror detection as well. Here we have a new invention, new patent. Let me read a bit to you. So it says here, there's another technology out there that's yet to make its way onto two wheels. Laser headlights. Sounds great. The idea is to use lasers for headlights has been around the car world for a decade, with the first production examples coming from a BMW in 2014. Channeling the light through fibre optics means lasers no longer need to be mounted within the tight confines of the headlight unit itself. Two Japanese companies have both hit on the idea of placing laser units under the seats of motorcycles and using fibre optic cables to take their output to where it's needed. Sounds great, this, doesn't it? The subject of several patent applications, it evolves under-seat laser concept a step further, mitigating the cost of the system by deploying a single laser light source for all the bike's illumination needs. As well as the potential to use the vast output of the laser light to improve forward illumination, the idea has the potential to make lights smaller. Honda's laser headlight patent suggests that the main beam and dip beams could be packaged into the wing mirrors of a bike. Can you imagine that? So there's no real visible lights, they're actually in the mirrors. Bonkers. What is that going to do for designs of bikes? I like the sound of this. The idea of under-seat lasers also benefits the mass centralisation of the motorcycles they're fitted to, shifting bulk from the extremities to the middle while helping protect the expensive laser from accidental damage. This sounds novel to me. I suspect if this is something that's in the car world, it will be coming. And if it means that the lights can be, you know, differently designed, let's hope they do something better than KTM have done with their funny thing on the Super Juke R. But yeah, this is a bit of tech that I quite like the sound of. So we'll see how that develops over the future years. Right, next up, tucked right in, Kawasaki's reborn ZX6R takes on its super sport rivals, the Street Triple 765, a bike I absolutely love, and the Aprilia RS 660, which I've yet to ride. So we talked a bit about this earlier, didn't we? Didn't get exactly a glowing review in the previous copy of MCN. Let's see what the verdict is here and see if they're consistent. This is from Nevesy, so a different reviewer. Let's see what he said. Disappointingly, the ZX6R's performance is more muted than before, and although it has a new colour dash, its electronics are basic. Aprilia's RS 660 is friendlier, cleverer and easier to extract the most from. but the Triumph has to be the super sport machine of choice for our generation. It's the quickest, most powerful, crammed with genuine Grand Prix tech, but still manages to be a superb all-rounder. Good old Nevesy. I love the Street Triple, yeah, compared, oddly compared against the sports bike, it fares very well, it turns out. And although I like the looks of sports bikes, I absolutely love the Street Triple. I owned a Street Triple for 9 years, and I quite possibly would own one in the future as well. So it's come out top of this middleweight test, so that's good news. Price wise, the Street Triple is actually the most expensive at 11,295. That's the RS version. The Aprilia is 9,550 and the Kawasaki 10,599. And out of those three, I do like the look of the Aprilia, I must admit. I would probably go for the Street Triple just because it just makes that much more sense with that upright riding position. Sounds amazing, that engine. I like the fact it's a Triumph. Chuck it around, brilliant bike, brilliant bike. So I'm not surprised that's won that test. Although it's a bit of an odd grouping, I think. All right, last story before we get on to parish notices. Evolution of the species. This is the new and improved Triumph Tiger 900. So I'm a fan of the Tiger 900. It's the bike that I rode in Japan in the current series that's going out. Thank you to everybody that's watching that series. You are a select few. I appreciate you watching that. I think it's the best tour series I've done. So if you haven't dipped into that one, I would encourage you to give it a go. But anyway, back to this. It says here, the old bike had a tendency to be vibey, especially through the bars, but the 2024 model has some fairly substantial improvements to combat this. And that was always a complaint I had about the Tiger 900, although I must say, when I was on that Japan trip, I didn't really notice it that much. The result is that vibrations have now been drastically reduced and the riding experience is far smoother. That's always a good thing. The seat, not only does the seat have a thicker foam, but it's also flatter, which offers more space. Good move. It's also got now the same 7-inch TFT dash and interface that was first released on the Tiger 1200 models. Now that is a good move because I found the old TFT on the Tiger 900 a bit, well, I think I described it as Fisher Price. It just never looked very good to me. And to bring it up to date with the one off the bigger Tiger is great news because that's quite a nice TFT on there. So that's good. So well done there. Fuel consumption has improved as well, with an average of 55 miles per gallon on twisty, throttle-happy roads. And that quickly rose towards 60 miles per gallon on A road, so that's good. And it's got more power and torque on tap too. Punches harder, it says here. So it's quicker and it's got better fuel economy. That's a good trick if you can pull it off, isn't it? What does Carl Stevens say in his summary? Although the changes might seem small, the result is a step forward on an already well-rounded machine. Vibrations have been fixed and servicing costs have been reduced. The old Tiger 900 GT Pro was impressive. Now it's even better. Fantastic. So it looks like they've made some useful improvements to the Tiger 900. Must have a go at that later on in the year when the sun comes out. All right, that means it's time for... Okay, to parish notices then, my chance to tell you what's coming up on the channel. So first off, I must say Happy New Year. Hope you had a good Christmas and New Year period, had some time off. Hopefully got out on your bike, although the weather where I am was absolutely pants. So yeah, didn't manage to get out very much. And when I did, it was in the wet, which leads me on to the next point. I want to say thank you to everybody that sent me best wishes for recovering after my shoulder operation. I have now, as you've just gleaned, been able to ride a motorcycle. I have to say, I'm still in an awful lot of pain. I'm not sure whether I should be. I certainly can't lug motorbikes around very easily. I have to get Mrs. Fly to help me move them. But once I'm sat on it and riding it, I'm all right. But anyway, the surgeon says it's going to be 6 months for full recovery, or 90% recovery. And I'm back to the hospital to see him in a couple of days. So I'll find out more then. But thanks for all the well wishes. I can now ride a bike. So you're going to start to see some more riding videos coming up. So that's great news. And on that subject, the videos that are coming up. First off, in the next month, we've got 5 more episodes of that Japan series. As I say, I do encourage you to watch that if you've not done so already. Those run up until February the 5th, which is the final edition of that series. I've got a bonus video coming along on the 9th of January, which I think if you're a Triumph fan, you're going to absolutely love. I can't say any more because it's all under embargo, but on the 9th of Jan, I shall be bringing you news of a great new Triumph, one that I've been waiting for a very long time. On the 10th of January, it's my first ride video on the R1300 GS. As I say, a video that has been so long overdue, it's untrue. Sorry it's taken me so long to get to you. I haven't made one before because number one, I was in Japan when the launch was on, and then number two, I had the shoulder issue, so I couldn't ride. But I can ride now. I have been out on the bike in the rain, I've ridden it in the dark, I've tried out that new light, I've been on motorways, I've done all that stuff. I've done quite a comprehensive first ride review, and I shall bring in that to you on the 10th of January. Then on the 17th of January, there's a very special video. Again, I don't want to tell you what it is, but it's a bit of a treat one, a little bit of a surprise maybe. 17th of January, that's coming. 24th of Jan, I'm going to bring you the top 5 things I don't like about the new GS. This is something I used to do occasionally. Don't want to be too negative, but the new bike isn't perfect, and I want to go through the things about it that niggle me. So that's coming up on the 24th of Jan. And then on the 31st of January, I'm going to do a direct comparison. A lot of GS stuff coming up. I'm going to do a comparison of the new GS with my old 1200 GS, and keeping in mind the 1250 as well. So if you're like me, in that kind of area, thinking, do I want to keep my old 1200 or 1250, or do I want to upgrade? I'm going to do a side-by-side comparison where I ride the bikes on exactly the same road on the same day, and I shall hopefully edit it such that you see me ride the same bit of road, talking about the same items as we go. Direct comparison. So we'll see how much better or not the new 1300 GS is. And then the next bike news, a little bit later than usual, is going to be on the 7th of Feb. So make a note in your diaries if you like these vids. 7th of Feb is the next bike news. All right, that's it for now. Hope you enjoyed that. Look forward to speaking to you again soon. Until then, this has been the Missing and Flyer. Cheerio.
Hey kids, we're the Missing and Flyers.